Deputy Grand Chief Mike Matadawabin and Chief Russell Wesley. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Chief Meraloon from Mushkegowuk, Ojibwe Nation.
Good afternoon. I think this is good here. So good afternoon. Thank you for welcoming us here in Toronto. So before I get started, I like to always acknowledge God, our Creator, for the gift of life and the gift of breath. I often, every morning, give thanks to Mother Earth for the nurturing gifts and the blessings she provides. I pray in good faith that our messages that are sent today are received with open minds and open hearts. After all, we are Anishinaabe, which means we are all mankind. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues, my fellow chiefs, ministers, media, and all persons present and listening. My name is Meraloon. I'm Chief of Mushkegowuk, Ojibwe Nation, which is in northwestern Ontario, just north of Thunder Bay. I'd like to open by stating this after listening to the press conference this morning. As all of us, we all had speeches and statements prepared, and to be honest, my speech was a couple pages long, but after this morning's statements and press conference, I shortened down, just get right to the point. There is no reasoning to justify a government's lack of a timely response. Not justifiable. The fact is it was too late. Too little, too late. The issue is we were not prepared and ready to act. This is a systematic issue, and policy reform is the foundation we need to do better in the future. We cannot focus solely on short-term solutions. We know we haven't seen the last of these fires, and we must look ahead. Be prepared and prevent this cycle from reoccurring year after year. Global warming is real. We know that. It's real. It's here today. We are now living the consequences of government policy changes, cutbacks, and short-sighted forestry management, which created prime conditions for the spread of these fires. At this point, the government should be crunching numbers, realizing that greater investment in wildland prevention and programs is the fiscally responsible avenue to take. Today, I heard the ministers indicate that they have invested $150 million, and clearly this is not enough, as they're getting additional resources from other countries, in particular Mexico. So clearly, we're not investing enough. In 2024, the base budget of 2024 was $135 million. They actually spent $107 million approximately. So clearly, it's still not enough. Reactionary. So I conclude with this statement, and my fellow colleagues and chiefs will continue with their statements. We all know that once fire starts, it gets going, and we're on the clock. The fires don't wait for us to figure out what our next move will be. We need to get ahead of them and prevent with prevention and prepare to act at a moment's notice. Further to my conclusion, I'd like to really reiterate this. We all live on Mother Earth, and we all have a responsibility to look after Mother Earth. We all have roles and responsibilities, no matter what your position is, whether or not, or no matter what your nationality it is. It's our job to protect Mother Earth. As Anishinaabe people, we take that to heart. And I challenge everybody to protect Mother Earth. This includes the governments. And I challenge the governments to invest where they need to invest to protect Mother Earth. And there's a reason why I opened my statement with being thankful for the gifts of life that God brings us and Mother Earth provides us. Do not take that for granted. We need to protect her. So I challenge Premier Ford to invest where it matters, because we need to protect our lands and our people. You say you want to protect the province of Ontario, then I challenge you to protect the province of Ontario and its people and its lands. Thank you.
Hello. I'd just like to start with saying thank you for all being here today. Leadership, ministers, general public and staff and everybody that's here, the press, for giving me this platform to speak. I just wanted to say that last time I forgot to introduce myself, so this time I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Pauline Drake. I'm the chief of Whitewater Lake, and my community had suffered a great tragedy and devastation. Today I speak with a heavy heart, and it's coming from inside here. I don't want to lay blame on everybody. It's happened, and unfortunately it came when we have so much crises across the world. Canada itself is suffering a lot. All the provinces are suffering, but especially Northern Ontario, in reaching all the communities that have was impacted by this forest fire. And it's coming from a heavy heart. The wildfires that swept across our region has changed my community. Personally, it's gone. We have to start from scratch. And I was just talking with my youth here. I brought her in. And we had a good conversation about generations from the past to my generation now, and then to her generation, because we want to leave a good generational, history for them. But now, today, we got to start from scratch. There's no buildings. There's a few structures left, but I haven't been able to fly in. I'm not allowed to fly in yet. But having said that, it's on the table, so I'm not going to lay blame. We lost a lot of homes. Our treasured places are lost on the community. The pain of our people is experienced is greatly. I'm getting calls all the time, and I'm dealing with emotional impact of their heritage is gone, and we have to build that from scratch again, like I said. So even facing this tragedy, our people remain resilient. We draw strength from one another. And I as a young leader, am walking into this new platform of dealing with the crises that I never thought that I would have to deal with, other than I knew there was always going to be that chance, because we live up in the north. We're in the fire zone. We always had that, impact over the years. But this is the worst, and it's going to continue to get worse. And as I concur with Chief Loon when he spoke of global warming, it's highly impacting everybody across the world, and especially in the north. And it's going to continue to grow. So we really got to keep an eye on that. Like, it's really important. As First Nation people, our relationship to the land is not merely economical or recreational. It's spiritual, it's cultural, and it's fundamental to who we are. That's who we are. So the connections are lost. But yes, we can rebuild. It's going to take time. It took over 30 years to build what we had, and it's going to take another 30 years. Providing, because we are a remote location, we are based solely on float planes to get there, to get the supplies up there, and the tools and everything that we need. So the roles that our ancestors played, it's just like heavy, it's sitting heavy with me. Through generations of observations and experience that develop practices to care for the land. We do care for the land. We watch and monitor everything that's happening in our territory. And we always work together with everybody that's sharing the land. And that comes from the tourism outfitters that pass through. And we utilize the tourism too as well, right? They pass by and we share our storytelling. They visit the locations that are historical in our place. And it's just heartbreaking to see via pictures, I haven't been up there yet, the devastation. And I'm hearing stories from media all across the world and travelers who have canoed that survived that tragic, horrific experience. And I myself and my elders and ancestors, like, we understood the healthiness of the land. We protected the land, we prepared, and we require action in that sense. Please be mindful. We are living in a world where fires are truly impacting the north. And it's the biggest fire right now in the Wabikamiki Park area, historically. So looking back at everything, really, I want to emphasize the fact that we do need to have controlled burns. I mean controlled. We don't want a fire already lit by lightning and then not watched and monitored, and then all of a sudden it expands and grows to another fire. Then you can't control it. It's gone. And that's how we were impacted. We were told that day to evacuate. We were told we could not go back in to help prepare for getting anything in and out. We wanted to go back and save our territory. This is our homeland. So through thoughtfulness of some of the outfitters, we work closely together with them. We need their business. We need their services. So this impacts everybody across the board. So just thinking back about the devastation piece of it all, it's just unremarkably how difficult it is, or has been for us as a community and for our youth experiencing loss of the historical nature of losing the grave sites. Actually, I'm really concerned about, I'm going to be emotional when I step forward on the land and go walk and see the grave sites, because my mom was buried there a couple of years ago, and my grandson. So it's a lot of things that are hitting me close to home here. Maintaining a healthy forest requires knowledge, commitment, and political will. In the era of climate change, we are no longer fire seasons are more extreme, like the weather is just getting intense. And it's becoming the norm, and we must remain focused and remain resilient and be strong and work together as a nation. We are all one people. As Chief Loon said, we are all need to care for Mother Earth as she cares for us and she nurtures us. So people who live on the land should not have to wonder whether their homes are going to be safe, their communities are going to be safe, whether their way of life is going to survive another fire season. This is very important. The destruction of homes is heartbreaking. There is another loss that weighs heavily on us. The fires have also devastated the wildlife. Again, I had stated that earlier. Thinking about the wildlife, it impacts us all. The ecosystems that's changed, sustained damage. Our people, our countless generations, animals, fish, plants, forests are part of our community, and we respect them because we come from clans. Our First Nation people come from clans. So that's very important to us. And the recovery will require more than rebuilding buildings. It will require restoring the health of the land, supporting and returning wildlife, and ensuring that future generations inherit the territory that is safe, healthy, and capable of sustaining life. Yes, we need to sustain life. And we are responsible for that. Government's responsible for that, responsible for providing the necessary resources, basically, staffing crews, just hearing the horror stories of crews being pulled to another fire when they should have been there monitoring the fires in their area. That's what I stated earlier, is region. We need to have resources in the region, not centralized. How is someone going to come fight a fire who's thousands of miles away when they should have been only 20-something kilometers away? So being told that was hurtful, that no one can go in and help fight. So the turning point of First Nations is we need to be recognized, respected, and incorporated into how forests are managed. Indigenous communities must be partners in decisions that affect our territories, not observers waiting for decisions to be made elsewhere. Like many of my fellow First Nation chiefs, I support a full and independent inquiry to Ontario's response to the wildfires that devastated our homelands. And also stated previously, Whitewater Lake First Nation received no warning. It was just, okay, you need to evacuate, and it's fires coming in tonight. That's the question. I asked them, well, can we get in there? How can we not get in there? Like, there's no crews, no one can go in front of the fires, lay out sprinklers. Nothing was, so we sat and waited for a week to find out that it was actually gone. And that was devastating, it was heartbreaking. We all cried, the community suffered. So the local people on the ground and outfitters and everybody and the fire crews there, they've been awesome. They've been helping support, they've been contacted. I've been contacted by them. And to be honest, I really haven't been contacted by anybody as well, just the media. So because of the lack of timely warnings, our people had no time to react, basically. We had no chance to get in there and grab our cherished family photographs, heirlooms, cultural items, important documents, and mementos that tell the story of who we are. Many people lost everything. So I have a whole page here, and I know I just need to say a few things. But today I'm calling on everybody, Canada, Ontario. This is really serious across the board. It affects everybody, not just Canada, globally. We are impacted by global warming. The crisis is so severe right now, and I can't even imagine next year. So we need to have a plan. We need to have the resources available. We need to provide our crews that are out there fighting fires. They're putting their lives at risk here. I realize that. Like, this is really important. So in ending all of this, in closing, is that to the First Nations people in the territory, know this, you are not alone. We will continue to stand together, support one another, and rebuild together. Again, like stated earlier, this is a global crisis, and it affects everyone across this country and even around the world. And we're seeing fires all across the world right now. It's destroying much of our land, our animals, our heritage, and we're grateful and thankful to all who are out there fighting the fires, battling, putting themselves on front line. If you've never been on front line before, just imagine the heat. I can't even explain it. The movies doesn't do it justice. It's terrible. And the act of bravery for everybody that's out here stating the true nature of what this is all about, it's very vital that we all work together. It's very important that we stick together. And again, it's not about race. It's not about being a First Nation person. It's about everybody that lives on this land, that lives in Northern Ontario, that lives in the bush. They don't know what it's like living in the bush. It's so peaceful. I cannot explain how comforting it was to go on the First Nation land in my territory and the community itself, what we were building. We were hoping to pass down to my niece there, Emily. You know, that's the next generation of leaders that are sitting here, and we wanted to provide them something. Now we got to start from scratch. So Chimigwach to everybody. I support all the leaders here, and I support and concur with what their statements are. And thank you all for listening to me.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'm here on behalf of Chief Cousins and the community to share some of the things that we faced as a community. We have one of our members in some of our people that are here. First of all, we wanted to acknowledge the lands, the Anishinaabe lands we're on, our brothers and sisters that are in this area. Miigwech for allowing us to be here and to do this. We all know the many things that our peoples are facing when it comes to the forest fire issues in our communities. And Neshkandaga was evacuated, and a declaration, a state of emergency was declared on July 16th. And days after, we evacuated the phase 1 vulnerable of our people. As you can hear from the other communities, we face the same thing. There's a lot of issues that are being faced by the community, by the lack of willingness or partnerships, true partnerships from Ontario. We all know there's a lot of things that we're dealing with. We live in a remote First Nation community. We're on a 31 boil water advisory through the first year, and where resolution for our water issue is still unsure. We're unsure when that's going to take place. During the evacuation, a lot of our situations, a lot of things came up. A lot of safety issues came up. One of those things was the supply chain, the hubs that we depend, those communities, those urban little centers like Pickle Lake, the highways that provides the goods and services and supplies to our area. It was blocked off because of the evacuation, the fire that was causing in those areas. And likewise, what we faced too as a community. And a lot of our people were left vulnerable. When you talk about infants, we want to protect our little ones. Imagine when you hear when you hear a mother say that she couldn't provide her infant 2 days because of the supply chain issues or the issues that were forced upon us because of the fire that was in. Imagine if you have a community member, a person that needed medical support. This individual broke his arm. It waited for 3 days to get medical care. Those are the things that we're talking about when we're talking about our people and what this forest fire season has done to our people back home. Food shipments were delayed. As I said, the supply chains is very critical to the wellness and well-being of our people. Imagine when the food arrived in our community, most of that food was spoiled. You couldn't eat it. The fruits that the community provided, wanted, was not good. Drinking water, medicine, fuel, and other essential needs became uncertain during these times. And this is where the government has failed. When they talk about responding to the forest fires and also the investments that they have provided, 150 million, it's not enough because the lives of our people are at risk right now. When there's these conditions that are present in our communities. So basically, these failures had real impacts on our people's lives, not just yesterday, not just today, but based on what's been happening right now, they're still going to be impacted because of the gaps are real and the investments are not enough. And the fact that Ontario, the Premier and his government has not even attempted to visit our people that were in Toronto here. We stayed at by the airport. and the appreciation by our people for all the supports they got from the public, from the people that came to their aid, our Six Nations brothers and sisters. They came up, and a lot of people helped our people. But where is Minister Rickford? Where is the Premier? When the people that are being evacuated are actually in the city. They were here for over a week. And luckily, our repatriation efforts have begun, and the last 2 flights are going in to the community. But that's not to say that that hasn't been without any failures or any gaps. We've seen gaps already. We've seen gaps throughout the whole emergency, throughout the whole process, even when we have our PIAC calls. They don't understand the needs of our community. And I think that's what needs to be told at this press conference too, is the lives of our people are at risk when somebody doesn't want to help our people, when somebody doesn't want to understand why our people are asking, why our community leaders are asking for support and help. They don't respect the First Nations when it comes to helping our own people. All they want is, they want to access our homelands. They want to bulldoze our rivers. They want to bulldoze our homelands. Get off that mentality, Premier Ford and Minister Rickford. Come and help the people that need the help. Not on the basis that you say yes to mineral development. You do it because it's the right thing to do. So we are here today to share our story, to share what we've been facing. Even when our repatriation decision was made to bring back our people, we still seen the same failures that we've been talking about again and again. We wanted to do certain things when we were repatriating our own people back to the community. Then again, PIAC made the decision without our involvement. And that's the thing about this forest fire season. When it comes to truly partnering with First Nations, you should be there to equally partner them. You should respect what they want, why they're saying, why they want to do things a certain way. Because there are other factors we need to consider. And I want to say this too. When we talk about climate issues, the climate change that's happening in the area, it should not give a free pass to the Ontario government for their failure, for their lack of response, for their lack of investment in this issue. Investments, partnerships, and true partnerships are needed. Why Neshkandaga is supportive of the inquiry is to ask, and is to make sure that why remote First Nation supply chains, for example, were not protected. Why communication between the governments and the First Nations, like many other First Nations have said, and the leaderships have said, have failed. There hasn't been any communications from the Premier or from the Minister. The fact that my chief was here with his community members for over a week, he did not get a single indication from the Minister, from the government, if they were going to come and see him. And that to me is intentional. It's lack of respect to our First Nation when it comes to treaty partnership, meaningful partnership that can help our people, regardless where you live. So we are here today to share some of those things. We are here because our people's lives were at risk, and somebody did not act accordingly, did not decisively act when it came to responding to the safety issues and concerns that our leadership and our communities were raising. Ontario is missing in action when it comes to the response of what we faced in our community. And they continuously do that today with their PR calls, with whatever they're doing. The system is not, it's not an isolated system. It's not an isolated incident. It's systemic. It's deliberate in a way that it's going to produce something that's not good for our people. And we are calling on for changes that is meaningful, that's going to involve our people, that's going to ensure that our leadership and our people that know our people know what's going to happen when it comes to these situations. So our people are the ones that are there determining how we're going to treat our, how we're going to take care of our elderly, how we're going to take care of our little ones. We had one mother that was carrying. Her baby was born yesterday. And that to me is very important, because life is still very important for all of us. And I don't see that in the government's response today or yesterday or previously. I don't see that they prioritize life. They prioritize something else. Maybe that bulldozer they prioritize too much. Maybe they need to get off that mentality and start working for the people. Start addressing the lives and the risks that are being faced by our people when it comes to this. This is very important. So we are here today to stand in solidarity with the other nations, with the other leaderships that are here, and we are very concerned where things are at right now, and we need meaningful change. And Premier Ford and his government needs to be held accountable. That's why we're supporting the inquiry and the investigations and the work that needs to be done to make sure that our people's lives are a priority. Miigwech.
Miigwech. Good afternoon. A lot comes to mind after listening to the leadership. I want to acknowledge the leaders that are here, the communities that have been impacted. Last summer, our sister community had to come to the rescue in Fort Albany because of a raging forest fire that was encroaching. It wasn't until after help came along. We had a water bomber, one or two of them. But there were warnings provided by the airline industry. They had spotted the fire 2 days prior. What does that tell you when the system does not acknowledge a warning? You have to ask yourselves, why was that not acknowledged? If it's the only system that is available to us, it is. Our airline partners, they're the only ones that do provide that warning system. My name is Mike Matawaban. I am one of the Deputy Grand Chiefs for Anishinaabe Nation. And I am here today to represent our 49 communities, and also at the same time to be here to support our communities that have been impacted. Just wanted to say too, we are people. We are human beings. And we live in the north, the remote flying communities. I think that's something that citizens of Ontario need to start thinking about, start realizing. This central part of Ontario, this seems to be your bubble. It's the only place that you pay attention to. Last summer, a bill was implemented. Bill 5. And that was a means to extend an arm to reach and grab minerals that are rich, located in our territories. That's the only time you extend an arm. It's when you want to take something. But when you do that, you ignore the people that live there. You don't think about our accommodation. You don't ask. You don't consult. You just implement a law. And where does that put us? We've become the outlaws if we go against that bill. That's something you have to understand. When you implement a law to make it easier for you to take something, you make the citizens that live in those regions outlaws. It's a means to criminalize our people, perpetuating the status quo of seeing more people in jail, which you all complain about. It's time to wake up. Climate change is not only about the environment. It is also you, as a human being, as a person. Things are changing and there are escalating. The change is escalating. And we're not prepared. We're not prepared to respond, to react. Nobody gave warning to the communities. Somebody who worked with CN Rail was the person who called out and said, "Get the hell out of there." Why is that? Or how is that? You're probably more interested in finding out why that train was there. Never mind the communities that are there. Those are things you need to start thinking about. Start being inclusive, if you want to call this Ontario, if you want to call this Canada. You have to be more inclusive, more accommodating. We also have a treaty. Treaty 9. Ontario insisted on being a partner to that treaty, to be a signatory. Do you know that? Do they teach that in school? Did you know that you are a signatory to Treaty number 9? When you go back to school or when your children go to school, ask them that question. Chances are, no, nobody will know. I'm here to stand with my colleagues, friends, in asking for an inquiry, an inquiry. It is not only about the lack of responding, the failure of how Ontario in responding to the fires. It has to go deeper than that. You have to ask yourself, why are we excluding certain segments of the population of Ontario, of Canada? Why are we outside the legislation when we have a treaty? There's a lot that has been done in the past. Our waters were diverted, again, without asking the people that live there. That has an impact. When water starts disappearing, it impacts the land. Water and land go hand in hand. cannot continue to use it as your entertainment, as your point of attraction to go to Niagara Falls. It is life. Water is life to us, and it was taken away. I want to emphasize that climate change is accelerating. And everything is connected, even ourselves. You're impacted. Everybody was complaining about the smoke down here. We didn't start the fire. United States were complaining, telling you don't know how to manage your forests. How does that make you feel? I mentioned Bill 5. I also want to mention the nuclear waste that is being planned, or it's in the works, to transfer to I don't know how to describe a process where a very volatile substance, and you're going to go and walk it over across the country to Northern Ontario. How do you guarantee you're not going to trip and fall and spill that? You didn't even ask us either. You're going to be crossing our territories. You're going to be crossing our bridges. You're going to be crossing our rivers. And like I said, water is life, and water is connected throughout Mother Earth. I want to ask a question about the PIOC system. The way they demonstrate how they push that authority without regard. And it was raised here, like when transportation is interrupted or impacted, it has a very wide effect. And air transportation is our only means. It's the only way in and out of our communities during the summer months. We don't have any road access. Most of our communities are fly-in communities. It is imperative both governments start looking at the infrastructure as well, because it does have an impact when it comes to evacuations. Only small aircraft can get in there. The bigger aircraft, there's limitations. I understand there's only 7 water bombers in Ontario. Is that true? And where were they? I understand they were just making sure the mine site by Long Lac was not interrupted. That's where their focus was. So with that, I just want to say we have to sit down. We have to talk. We need to act accordingly. Mother Earth is sending a strong message. The fires themselves reminded me of an impending scenario with the nuclear waste. That's what I envision if something should occur there will be no way to control it. But we're here. We're here to ask for those opportunities. We want Ontario to start paying attention to us as human beings in our remote communities. There's life out there beyond Barrie, wherever your boundary is. Most of the time I hear it's Barrie. That's silly. Very silly. Go to Fort Severn. Go to Bearskin. Those 2 points are the furthest you can go when you travel to any destination in Ontario, in Northern Ontario. Then you will see how far this land extends, how wide it goes. Then you might see the peatlands, the lungs of the earth. I guess we could go on and on, but I don't want to take up too much time, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity. And I'm here to support our communities. This is a very devastating event that we just experienced, and we're here to work with each other and support each other. Miigwech.
Hi, good afternoon. So, Buju. My name is Dr. Sharon Nate. I am the Chief Executive Officer for Matawa First Nations Tribal Council. And 3 of our First Nations were affected and evacuated from their communities due to the fires. So I just want to start off by saying that we can't just stand by and watch our communities disappear and its members displaced. So I'd like to acknowledge Collins and Whitewater for their huge loss, and that our thoughts and prayers are with them. And now, so our communities, our chiefs and our councils, they continue to advocate, politically, that still remains. But from a technical service standpoint, Matawa First Nations is a technical organization where we do support our First Nations. The lack of info to the communities, what we saw before the evacuations and what the chiefs were going through and the decisions that they were making to start the evacuation for the vulnerable and the elderly and the prenatal members. And there was a lack of information from MNR, from both levels of government. There was lag time from the fires to start the MNR tracking. The forest fires were being spotted by community members. They were sharing this amongst each other on social media. And then there was a significant delay in the time when MNR began to actually track these fires. And then understanding the dangers of the smoke and the fire, our community members were not informed, of what could possibly happen should, there was no process in place if something, catastrophic were to happen. So the levels of smoke in the remote communities, was a great and continues to be a great concern, and the potential to overburden the limited staff that were already in our nursing stations in our communities. So it's important that the public understand the domino effect that the smoke has in the remote communities, the nursing stations, the limited orange responses in these crisis situations, and then the assurance of the Canada Armed Forces for deployment for evacuations. What is the process for that? I'm not sure that all of our First Nations are aware of the process for that. And the greatest improvement for the remote and rural road access communities, the First Nations, would be knowing that the Canadian Armed Forces, would they be deployed within our First Nations right away? Most Matawa First Nations, we had been evacuating our vulnerable people with private charters. How is that feasible, in this day and age? Now, we need assurance that Canada and Ontario will intervene to rescue these people. And then addressing the costs for the evacuations. And there has to be a coordination between Canada and the government, Canada and Ontario, for First Nations to recoup these costs. We would expect that these items are tracked and that they're submitted for review, and then that they don't wait forever for a turnaround. And then the post-event analysis. There needs to be a debriefing with our chiefs and our councils and the frontline staff to learn how an emergency of this scale in the future can be handled. So both levels of government need to work together. You know, my whole life as a student going through this system, and then as a professional, continuously been going back and forth between both levels of government. Like, who is responsible for what? We see it in health and education, and now with these emergency crisis management. In this current day and age, Ford government is waiting on the Carney government, and vice versa. Carney government's waiting on the Ford government. Our evacuees are struggling, Nongum, like today, with the elements of these urban centers. They aren't used to this. We're northerners, and we live in the north, and we live off the land the best we can. What's very profound to me is I went to go see an elder yesterday in Niagara Falls, and once she saw me, she looked very confused sitting there, and once she saw me, her face just lit up because she knew who I was. And she says, "When am I going home?" And this is not her world. She doesn't know what Uber is, or Tim Hortons, or Starbucks, what a Grande or Venti is. That's not our life. You know, she wants to go home. So as a technical organization, we'll continue to support our First Nations. And then once the how do you say that word? Repatriation begins, you know, as an organization, Matawa, we would like to sit at the table with the levels of government after this is, you know, after our people get safely home, because we need to be at the table to prevent this from happening again, because next summer will come fast. I just want to add that my home community is Ibamating First Nation, and we have several S100 fire certified firefighters there. MNR, the ministry, did not hire any of them. They could have been already starting to clean up the fires and whatnot. So I don't know who's responsible for that, but you know, there's many of S100 firefighters within our communities. So please look at that as well. So Miigwech, thank you for allowing me the time to speak.
Good afternoon. I'm JP Hornick, President of OPSU SEFPO, and I'm here today to express my full support and solidarity with the Chiefs and their demand for a public inquiry. OPSU SEFPO is a 200,000 strong public sector union in Ontario. Our members are fighting these fires on the ground, they're piloting aircraft in the skies, and they're providing operational support. But the reality is that they have not been set up to succeed. We saw that in the press conference this morning, where Minister Harris admitted that there are more fires than there are crews on the ground. If our members were working 24/7 without a break, they would not be equivalent to the number of fires that are raging through Ontario right now. And that's because they haven't been set up to succeed. Premier Ford's government has failed to provide the transparent planning, stable funding, and staffing that the fire program requires. And we've heard again and again about the impacts on communities. Due to climate change, fire seasons are starting earlier, lasting longer, and they're harder to contain. Our firefighters are overworked and exhausted, they are short-staffed, and they've been saying this for years. Despite the increasing severity of the fire seasons, Ontario had over 50 more fire crews 20 years ago than we do today. We have approximately 156 crews today, whereas there were 214 crews in 2005. It is vital to get to fires while they can still be contained. When resources are stretched, managers are forced to make choices between holding crews on existing fires and responding to new ones. But unfortunately, Premier Ford is in complete denial about the disastrous consequences of his poor planning. Clear warning signs about the scale of this threat and the lack of preparedness were ignored. Frontline workers, First Nations communities, we've been sounding the alarm for years. In 2021, Grand Chief Fiddler personally delivered an 82-page wildfire management to Doug Ford. And what did the Premier do with it? Entire communities have burned to the ground. The Canadian press reported that 12 of the 13 communities that have evacuated in Ontario's north are First Nations. Some of them had to self-evacuate because they were told not to worry by authorities. Last week, Premier Ford said he totally disagreed with the concerns of First Nations leaders. His emergency preparedness minister fled a CBC interview when she was faced with tough questions. And then his government spokespeople tried to deny the fact that wildland firefighters are understaffed, despite their own internal government briefings saying otherwise. MPP Kevin Holland said communications with First Nations is improving and claimed to have met with Gull Bay First Nation Chief Wilfred King, but Chief King says they have never even spoken. Doug Ford must be the only person in this province who thinks that his government is doing a good job on this file. This is a complete failure of political leadership, and we are all paying a terrible price for their gross negligence. So I want to say Chi Miigwech for MPP Mapakwa for including us in this. Thank you.
Chief Russell. The last one.
Miigwech, Russell Wesley, Indigenous, Okamakan, Bjizaaganing. My community was evacuated on July 14th. And without elaborating too much on the details, we went into the standard PIOC process for evacuating communities in crisis. And I have a script here which I'm going to deviate from. I apologize to my media person. But, you know, I want to thank our local responders, host communities, and the hydro crews that were able to restore the power on the 22nd of July after 12 poles had burned. And you know, with the situation in Cat Lake, this is the second time in 14, 16 years that we've had a power outage due to fire. The first time that happened in 2013 was a change in the Far North fire management policy in order to adapt to the fact that there was assets in the remote north that needed to be protected. And then this year we had another fire. It was preventable because that particular fire had been burning since May. And interestingly enough, there's some conspiracy theories going on about incendiaries being dropped by airplanes. So there's two instances in Cat Lake where that has happened. One that just preceding the fire, there was an aircraft that flying around 1:30 in the morning, grids to the west of the community, and then 72 happened. But obviously there was lightning as well. But you know, a lot of these things are, I see this on social media right across Ontario about conspiracy theories. Oh, they're burning out the Indians. But I'm not going to harbor on that. Fire 72 was preventable. You know, in the ministry just, you know, took a strategy of observation on it, and then fire, and the other fire right beside it. But that wasn't really the primary concern. The concern was fire 64 and 66. And at no point I had no intention of ever evacuating again, but you know, at ministry insistence, we evacuated because, not because of the fire, but the potential of power loss. And that did in fact happen. But since then, we've repatriated every one of our communities, and you know, the First Nations talk about safety issues of evacuees while under evacuation. We left 2 people behind in Toronto. We left 2 people. We had a missing girl. But you know, there's those host people in the community that really come to bat for each other, that really help each other, that makes evacuation a little more pleasant. So there's a lot of problems with what we have. It appears to be a second-tiered approach to First Nation concerns as it relates to fire and evacuations. You know, and then there's priority on other sector interests like the resource-based industry, the outpost. You know, but the values protection is pretty consistent because my community had sprinklers all over it. So it's there, but there seems to be a preference for those things that generate an economy for the province. So, having said that, we're trying to address many issues that impact my First Nation. You know, I have a mining activity that's happening in my First Nation, and I've asked questions around the contents of complementary measures. Interestingly, no response to them. But anyhow, I want to support, and actually I stand in support of the idea of a public inquiry into the crisis. We are in crisis, not just First Nations, but Ontarians in general. There was municipalities as well that were evacuated. And I mean, just to say that we don't have a problem. Yeah, we do have a problem. Ontario is burning, and there's no end in sight, and there's no strategy. Nan, Anishinaabe Nation, the Grand Chief, handed the document to Ontario 6-7 years ago, emergency management plan that identified gaps in wildfire management, emergency management. That's 6-7 years ago. And did they ever respond? I don't think so. So, it's not like the fact that we are ranting and raving about the problems that we have across the nation. We also have solutions. The thing is, we have a treaty partner that refuses to listen. Again, I echo Deputy Chief's comment. Learn about your colonial history. How we all sitting here talking to each other about the situation is that one party doesn't listen to the other. Simple. But anyways, as it stands to say, I support the concept and approach of having a public inquiry. We are in a disastrous crisis. Having said that, I have 12 possible actionable items that could be part of the solution. It depends on the willingness of Ontario to action these. Number one, the establishment of a First Nations Wildfire Authority. First Nation led with shared jurisdiction alongside federal and provincial agencies. Number two, permanent wildfire preparedness funding, multi-year. Number three, Indigenous guardian and fire stewardship programs prescribe burning and traditional land stewardship as part of provincial fire management. Number four, recognition of Indigenous cultural burning. 5, remote community resilience fund. Invest in fire breaks, emergency water systems, backup power. In my community, there's a forward attack base in my community. I was there the day before yesterday, and they couldn't turn the power off, the backup generator. That shows you how well they maintain their equipment. Communications and fire-resistant infrastructure. Number 6, climate adaptation strategy. Develop a First Nation specific adaptation strategy recognizing fire seasons are changing. Number 7, emergency evacuation reform. Improve evacuation planning, transportation, emergency shelters, and supports for people. Mental health and mental health supports. Fund smoke shelters. air filtration, respiratory care, trauma, counseling, and long-term recovery services. Number 9, wildfire data and early warning. Real-time warning, real-time warning, weather forecasting, satellite monitoring, community-based alert systems. Number 10, economic recovery and compensation. Create a permanent compensation program. The other day, in the last PIOC call we had, was described to me how much compensation was available by ISC, 10,000. My community alone estimated by my frontliners 90,000 in food spoilage, residential food spoilage, 90,000. That's just a conservative estimate. So economic recovery and compensation, and create a permanent compensation program. Number 11, revenue sharing to prevent fire. Dedicate a portion of forest and natural resources for wildfire prevention, emergency management, climate adaptation in First Nation territories. And finally, an independent review and accountability by publishing annual reports, measuring response times, funding levels, community preparations, and wildfire impacts. At this time, these are the immediate actionable items we feel would be part of addressing a public inquiry. The fire season is not over. It's not going to be over for at least another 3 months. I think I don't have any more else to say other than, we're constantly dealing with relationship problems with our treaty partner. I come from a community. Cat Lake has a treaty with land annexed from Mishkigogumang for those Mishkigogumang people living in Cat Lake. Other than that, I have Aboriginal title, meaning I don't have a treaty. So that's a long process that I have with Ontario. But yet, there's activity happening in my territory. I have a mining company that's 40 kilometers. I have a draft IBA in place with a list of complementary measures. All of those are related to what we're experiencing now in my community and how it impacts my community as a sovereign nation. But I wanted to come here with the intent of supporting the idea of a public inquiry. But I also wanted to come here with actionable items, things that we need today, addressing parts of the problem that we're experiencing.
Miigwech to the leadership for your comments. But first, I just want to acknowledge the colleagues that are here with me at the legislature. Leader Marat Stiles, MPP Bourgeois, MPP Samji, MPP Fraser, MPP Clancy. And I know I'm going to pass it off to Lise Bourgeois, MPP Bourgeois, to facilitate the Q&A. Miigwech.
Thank you. I'll just introduce myself. I am the MPP for Thunder Bay, Superior North. Many of these communities are in my riding and have been evacuated to my riding. This is very real. I hope that people take away the scope of devastation that has happened. What if High Park in Toronto burnt down and all the homes around it? What about if Huntsville, a fire burnt through Huntsville? Would there be a different response from this government? We need that awareness in the rest of Ontario to recognize the lives the properties, the values that people have lost during this fire season. Want to thank everyone for being here, chiefs for being here, colleagues. We're going to open this up to questions. Please note, no questions to the MPPs. This is for the chiefs. There will be scrums afterwards for political leadership. And so please direct your questions to the chiefs. Thank you very much.
Members of the media can line up at the press microphone behind me to your left. Please identify your name and outlet as well as who your question is directed to. And a friendly reminder to keep it to one question and one follow-up, please.
Hi, my name is Émilie Goujon-Pelletier with Le Droit newspaper. My question probably best directed at Chief Pauline Drake, just because you talked about the loss of wildlife and the care for human life. When you hear the Premier and Minister Harris talk about how it's a miracle there was no loss of human life, how does that make you feel?
From my standpoint, I'm grateful myself that we haven't lost any of our community members or any community members in our other First Nations and outside the communities also, like in the territory. But it's disheartening too, is, you know, what if? There's always that what if something happened. What if they couldn't get in there to rescue a lot of people? And I'm thinking about the stories that I heard about people that were trapped on the lakes, fighting for their lives, scrambling from one island to the next island, trying to get out. And there was in our territory, like that was in our region. And I was horrified. I'm horrified the fact that no one did pass. And I'm grateful that they weren't. But having said that, there should have been rescue. There was time that they didn't come in because a lot of the fires are just immensely rolling through really fast. So they need supports, like, you know, Ulrich saying that, you know, the lack of crews, you know, if I heard in one of the, if Rusty Myers didn't fly back in to go get the canoers, they would have been, we wouldn't known, right? And I've always said that myself because we had a lot of canoers pass through our community for years and years. And I always wondered in the back of my head, once I found out about the evacuation order, there was always that thought that there has to be people on that lake. There always has been people on the lake. Months go by, like they go for weeks, and you don't even know if they're there until you see them passing by one day. So that terrified me. And again, I don't know if I answered your question, but you know, it didn't really give me any, I just disheartening thinking about it.
And we can open that question also for anyone else who would like to answer. Thank you.
Hi there. Funding has been discussed quite a bit. Oh, thank you. I'm short. We heard that a call for a multi-year permanent funding and calls for more funding on this side of the room as well. Is there a number that we're looking at that would be helpful going forward?
I think there was a proposal that was referenced here earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that number in front of me, but I think for me, the main thing is we have to be inclusive. All of Ontario, all of Canada, we all have to be part and get involved in being ready. This is something that should be a wake-up call for everybody, and I hope it is. Thank you.
Just a quick response to your question on an amount. I think at the minimum, it should be double for now, until we determine, you know, what some of the needs, some of the shortages that we have in service, the gaps. Once we see those things, I think, for now, I think there should be at least double.
Thank you very much. And it's Catherine from the Trillium. I didn't say that before. We've heard a lot of discussion about communication and lack of, while you're here today or this week, have you reached out or do you have any meetings set with the government to discuss efforts?
Are there any meetings planned? No?
Hello, this is Nishkandaga here, speaking for Chief Kuzis in our community. Clearly, there is a disconnect when Ontario says that they're doing a great job in communicating and working with First Nations. All I can say is Chief Kuzis hasn't gotten a call from Minister Rickford or anybody from aside from the letter that was sent to Minister Dunlop. She responded saying that her ministry is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but that's just merely words, so I don't think there hasn't been any real communication. And the reason why we say that is because supposed to be the PIOC call, the system itself supposed to bring partners and people together to develop how those supports are going to be delivered to the displaced, and that seems to be very limited in terms of how our First Nation is being viewed on that. And so that's something that's very problematic for us because there seems to be a lot of miscommunication throughout our evacuation process, and to me, that is a big failure that's really impacting our people when it comes to our elderly, when it comes to our most vulnerable, like people that are prenatal, that are carrying little ones in their wombs. Like, those are some considerations that are really, it saddens you when you hear your chief trying to hammer down those things with the PIOC people, and they don't listen. They don't understand why the supply chain or why the other issues are so critical to the wellness of our people. Because these are not minor logistical issues that we're dealing with when we're in remote First Nations. These are like life and death infrastructure issues that we need in our communities. So when something is cut off in our supply to our community, our kids will be impacted. So the communication and the fact that Ontario has been missing in action in the response and the support that we've been asking for is clearly there. It's not, they haven't done much in terms of facilitating those things that need to occur. So when it comes to communication, working with our First Nation leaderships and so on, that is non-existent in our view. Okay, let me get you.
Hi. Oh, sorry. Did you want to answer that?
Yeah, I was just looking back at my notes. I did deviate from my notes to earlier. To answer your question, the notes that were prepared, even today, the Premier and his ministers refuse to meet with our leadership. They claim they have engaged with us, yet that is not the experience of our chiefs or our communities. Minister Dunlop has said her office maintained communication throughout the emergency. This is simply not what our leaders experienced while families were being evacuated and communities were under threat. Emergency management and wildfire responses are provincial responsibilities. These systems exist to protect every resident in Ontario. In Ontario, we're part of that too. Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Gray, Globe and Mail. Just a question for Chief Drake, I think, just about this issue of the lack of warning. Can you just describe quickly, what system was in place to warn communities like yours? Was there, like, in past years, or what were you expecting at that time that you didn't, that's changed now that you didn't get?
The difference from my leadership role now compared to the late Arlene Slipperjack, they would call her, or she would call them, especially because she was always on the lake and there's a fire, they smell smoke. So the first initial is to call and inquire about it. This time, there was warnings, even the pilots from Wilderness North, we all noted that there was a fire out in Grayson. We saw it on July 8th, and the fire rolled through. I don't even know when our community was actually hit, because I was warned on Monday the 15th, I believe. And just having said that, just the evacuation piece of it, there was no warning, really. They just told us that day, get everybody out. But thank God that we already had a pre-planned flight that Sunday. We got the last crew out, and we were preparing. We well-stocked the community on the 8th for the next group to go through. And I wouldn't know what to do, because literally I had to text my pilots that I communicate with all the time. They're just like our family. Did you know that we're getting evacuated in our community? And they had no clue. And this is a base in Armstrong. So they went out asking the MNR there. They didn't know.
So normally it would have been a communication from MNR or
Yep.
the emergency.
Yep. MNR would
department?
contact
MNR
us.
Would contact the
Yeah.
First Nation and say, we think there's a fire coming.
Yep,
We've got
and
a few
then-
days. Let's get you out.
Yeah, that's how it used to be like, but I don't know, I think everything was just caught off guard. Like, it just rolled in really fast, right? So it was actually the MNR representative from Wendigo, my tribal council, that actually called me and texted me that she got a call from the MNR in Thunder Bay that we had to go. They were asking me if I had any members in the community at the time. And I was floored. I was devastated just hearing that words, and what if, that question.
And that call was when, sorry, just to clarify?
It was Monday.
And the evacuation
Was
occurred
Monday.
that day? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Liam Casey with the Canadian Press. We asked the minister this morning if he would entertain a public inquiry. He didn't really commit to anything. He also didn't commit to even making anything public from their after-action reports that apparently take place after the fire season, excuse me, every year. Just wondering what the chiefs think about that.
Thank you for the question. It's common practice, obviously, for any major incident that you're always going to have a debrief. Common practice. That's nothing new to any organization, any entity. And that response to me was just, didn't really answer the question that you asked. And I agree that that's just an answer that any agency will. Okay, I got a little closer. Okay. Kind of screwed my train of thought now. But just getting back to just any agency will provide that type of response, really. And it was really, the question wasn't asked or answered the way you put it. But again, it goes back to supporting this inquiry. Those questions that you ask will answer those questions. And that's why we support this inquiry and to look into these issues. And again, it goes back to my high-level statement. I know my fellow chiefs are going to bring up these issues. And it just reminds us that, or reminds me as a First Nation leader, that we need to look at those investments again that was there at one point. I have fellow ex-MNR people that used to work in MNR. They left for a reason, not only because of the cutbacks, but just because how they were treated. So it goes to show the investment was cut, and they need to reinvest. And I agree with MP Mamako that, to start off with a number to double what they mentioned this morning, which was 170 investment. We need to double that, if not triple that, to really address those issues.
Does anyone else want to weigh in?
You seem to be waiting for
But you don't have to.
the right response.
I have other questions, but I don't know if anybody else wanted to weigh in on the fact that they don't want to seemingly release anything publicly.
Well, that's the thing for us, like, we want an inquiry. I don't know if there's such a thing as a people's inquiry. That could be an avenue. But we need to get these questions answered. Ontario needs to know what's going on, what's happening. There's questions that need to be asked. Responses that need to be catered or accommodated to include First Nations, our remote communities in the north. There's a lot of things that were overlooked, not accounted for. Response, you have to ask why.
Chief Wesley, Cat Lake. It's not only First Nations that deserve an inquiry. It's Ontarians. If you look at and engage the impacts on social media, it's just not First Nations that deserve an inquiry. It's municipalities, little towns. And we don't know the potential full impacts of this wildfire season until we actually examine every bit and part of it. You know, Opsu spoke of the impacts. And in First Nations, you know, First Nations like mine are always asked to pay for the cost of S1 and S2 certification. That's $30,000 a year I'm spending for nothing. Those are little minor details that may not mean anything, but right across the wildfire crisis landscape, it does have a significant impact. And this is just not me. It impacted the Trans-Canada Highway because it was closed. The 599 was closed. This is a major corridor for the mining community north of Pickle Lake. It disrupted food and fuel supply, which impacted a municipality and a number of First Nations in the north. It cut off communication. Fiber was out. Hydro was out. We were without communication for 5, 6 days, 7 days, I believe. Fiber was burned. Fiber is what harbors cellular communication. It had an impact on everybody, not just First Nations. And right across, you know, the salaried person on the ground risking their lives fighting some of the fires. The Piyok people that were on these Piyok calls, that was in chaos because it's not organized. All of those things have costs. It seemed like that there was no organized management process for Piyok calls. They're circulating duty officers on the calls. One young person was just out of Pampers. Didn't know how to moderate a call. These things were happening to us while we were doing the evacuations. Never mind what was happening with the municipalities. We haven't heard them. Did you ask them if it warrants a public inquiry? Yeah, yes, it does. And then you're asking for a budget, like what funding, what number are you talking about? Well, I don't know. I only know what Premier Ford is spewing. But I do know that it costs a hell of a lot more than what they're spending, because we wouldn't have these crises. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
What did you, and as for any of the chiefs, what did you make of sort of the coming out of this morning's press conference, where it sort of sounded like everything is fine? What did you think of that?
You want my honest answer?
Yes.
You're avoiding a lynching. Simple. They're getting ahead to avoid a lynching. And that's my opinion of the press conference.
Thank you.
We will now go to online questions.
For media present online, please use the raise hand function and I will call on you. No questions.
Seeing no questions online, that'll conclude today's press conference. Thank you.
Reminder to the media that the party leader